my husband's the other woman didn't just break my marriage. She sent me the highlight reel of her breaking it, straight to my inbox. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a declaration of digital war. And honey, I'm ready for battle. There I was, Marjorie Penrose, 42 years old, navigating the subtle art of not screaming into a throw pillow on a Tuesday morning. My life, which for 18 glorious, utterly predictable years had been a masterclass in suburban perfection, the Greenwich Colonial, the country club membership, the husband, Lucian, who built luxury homes and had a smile that could sell ice to an Eskimo, had officially devolved into a reality show I never auditioned for. And the latest episode? A grainy, poorly lit video from a woman named Octavia Llewellyn. Let's just say it wasn't a cooking tutorial. It was a full-blown, look what your husband can do with me, highlight reel. And it landed in my inbox like a digital hand grenade. My first thought? Seriously? Not the infidelity, mind you. I'd been collecting evidence of Lucian's little side hustle with Octavia for months. A new cologne that smelled suspiciously like midlife crisis. Late-night client meetings that ended with him smelling of expensive perfume in desperation. And the subtle, almost imperceptible shift in his gaze. From my wife, my rock, to my wife, my very comfortable, slightly too familiar furniture. I wasn't born yesterday, folks. I was born in the era of dial-up internet and knowing how to read between the lines. So, the affair? Old news? The video? That was a declaration of war. A digital slap across the face, delivered with the kind of smug confidence only a woman who thinks she's won can possess. Bless her heart, I murmured, my voice dripping with the kind of saccharine sweetness that could curdle milk. Octavia, bless her 30-year-old filter-enhanced heart, clearly thought she was sending me a message of defeat. He's mine now, victory lap. What she didn't realize was that she'd just handed me the blueprint for her own spectacular downfall. Because if there's one thing 18 years of marriage to a man like Lucian teaches you, it's how to play the long game, and how to make a 5-course meal out of sweet, sweet revenge. Did she really think I'd just curl up with a pint of Ben & Jerry's and weep into my silk pajamas? Oh, honey, no. I was already mentally drafting the guest list for her comeuppance. The video itself was a masterpiece of bad taste. Shot in what looked like a generic hotel room, probably one of Lucian's business trips to Stamford, where Octavia apparently resided in a trendy loft apartment. It featured Octavia, all pouty lips and strategically placed hair, making it abundantly clear that Lucian was, shall we say, otherwise engaged. The audacity, the sheer unmitigated gall of it, almost made me admire her for a second. Almost. Then I remembered she was messing with my life, my reputation, and my carefully curated sense of calm. And that's when the interior designer in me kicked in. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about redecorating her entire world, starting with her family's perception of her. I leaned back in my ergonomic office chair, the one I'd painstakingly sourced for my home office, a sanctuary of tasteful neutrals and carefully chosen art. My fingers tapped a rhythm on the polished mahogany desk. Lucian was out, no doubt closing a deal or networking with some unsuspecting client. He'd been gone since 6 a.m., probably already on his second espresso and first lie of the day. The house was quiet, save for the hum of the central AC and the distant chirping of birds. A perfect backdrop for plotting. Octavia Llewellyn. Her name echoed in my mind, a discordant note in the symphony of my otherwise orderly existence. I'd done my homework, of course. A quick dive into the digital rabbit hole had revealed a treasure trove of information. Social media was a goldmine for the casually vindictive. Octavia, a self-proclaimed lifestyle influencer, chronicled her every avocado toast and Pilates session for a meager following. But it was her family that truly piqued my interest. Her older sister, Sabine, a high-powered corporate lawyer in New York, whose LinkedIn profile screamed, perfectionist, and her father, Magnus, a retired banking executive, whose online presence was sparse but reeked of old money, tradition, and an almost pathological obsession with appearances. Bingo. The video, which I had saved, not deleted, because who deletes evidence, played on a loop in my mind. It was a challenge, a gauntlet thrown. And I, Marjorie Penrose, was never one to back down from a challenge, especially when it involved a little creative problem-solving. My revenge wouldn't be messy or emotional. It would be surgical, elegant, and utterly devastating. Like a perfectly placed accent wall that completely transforms a room, my plan would subtly, yet irrevocably, alter Octavia's landscape. The question wasn't if I would respond, but how. And the answer, I realized with a slow, satisfied smile, involved a very specific kind of lunch. A surprise lunch for Octavia and her very traditional family. The thought sent a shiver of anticipation down my spine. This wasn't just about Lucian's betrayal anymore. It was about Octavia's arrogance. She'd underestimated me. She'd assumed I was just another suburban housewife, too busy coordinating throw pillows to notice the train wreck happening in my own living room. But I wasn't just a housewife. I was a woman who knew how to stage a scene, how to manipulate perception, and how to make sure every single detail was perfectly placed for maximum impact. And Octavia Llewellyn was about to learn that some battles are best fought not with provocative videos, but with perfectly brewed iced tea and a side of public humiliation. The first step was the invitation. It had to be impeccable. Casual enough not to raise suspicion, yet formal enough to convey importance. A celebration, I decided. A secret achievement. Oh, the irony was going to be delicious. I pictured Sabine, the corporate lawyer, meticulously checking her calendar, and Magnus, the patriarch, adjusting his tie, both blissfully unaware they were walking into a perfectly laid trap. The thought alone was enough to make me hum a little tune. This wasn't just revenge. It was performance art. And the curtain was about to rise. The next few days were a blur of meticulous planning, a symphony of subtle manipulations. I'd always prided myself on my organizational skills, but this project? This was my magnum opus. First, the venue. Not just any restaurant would do. It had to be the place. The kind of upscale establishment in downtown Greenwich where the linen napkins were crisper than a freshly ironed dollar bill, and the waitstaff moved with the silent grace of ninjas. I settled on the Gilded Spoon, a place Lucian and I frequented, known for its discreet booths and impeccable service. Perfect for a very public, yet intimate, takedown. Then, the invitations. I crafted them with the precision of a surgeon. A delicate email to Sabine, referencing a mutual acquaintance, a little white lie, easily justifiable in the pursuit of justice, and an urgent, exciting, secret achievement of Octavia's that simply had to be celebrated. I hinted at a potential career breakthrough, something that would appeal to Sabine's corporate sensibilities and Magnus's pride. For Magnus, a formal letter, hand-delivered by a discreet courier service, playing on his traditional values and the importance of family milestones. I even managed to get Lucian to inadvertently confirm Octavia's big news by casually mentioning to him that I heard Octavia might be up for some major influencer award. He just grunted, probably too preoccupied with his own web of deceit to notice my subtle prodding. Men, bless their oblivious hearts. The day of the lunch, a crisp Sunday afternoon, arrived with the kind of perfect New England weather that usually signals a pleasant, uneventful brunch. Not today. I arrived at the Gilded Spoon precisely 10 minutes before the Llewellyns were due, dressed in a tailored cream pantsuit that screamed effortless elegance and I'm here to collect what's mine. My hair was perfectly coiffed, my makeup subtle but flawless. I looked like a woman who had her life together, even if, internally, I was a coiled spring of controlled chaos. I watched from a discreet distance as Sabine and Magnus arrived. Sabine, in a sharp navy dress, her posture as rigid as her legal briefs, scanned the room with an air of professional scrutiny. Magnus, in a perfectly pressed suit, looked like he was attending a board meeting, not a family celebration. They were a study in Llewellyn perfection, radiating an aura of impeccable breeding and barely concealed judgment. My kind of people. To dissect. Marjorie, darling, so glad you could make it. I greeted them with a dazzling smile, extending a hand to Sabine, then to Magnus. I'm Marjorie Penrose, a close acquaintance of Octavia's. She's just running a little late. You know how these creative types are, always on their own schedule. I winked, a conspiratorial gesture that immediately put them at ease. Or so they thought. We settled into a secluded booth, the kind that offered both privacy and a perfect vantage point for observing the entire restaurant. I ordered sparkling water, while Sabine opted for an iced tea and Magnus, a robust coffee. The small talk was excruciatingly polite, filled with veiled questions about my connection to Octavia. "Oh, we met through mutual interests," I said vaguely, letting my eyes twinkle with a secret. She's just such a vibrant soul, isn't she? So full of life. I emphasized life, with a slight pause, letting the word hang in the air, loaded with unspoken meaning. As the appetizers arrived, delicate crab cakes and artisanal bread, the tension, a delicious undercurrent, began to build. Sabine, ever the lawyer, tried to pin me down. "So, Marjorie, about this secret achievement? Octavia's been rather tight-lipped. Is it a new campaign? A brand deal?" Her tone was laced with a hint of competitive sisterly pride, a classic American family dynamic. "Oh, it's far more personal than that, Sabine," I purred, taking a dainty bite of a crab cake. "It's about growth, about finding her true calling, about making a significant, shall we say, contribution to someone's life." I paused, letting the words marinate. Magnus, who had been silently observing, grunted, a flicker of paternal pride in his eyes. He clearly imagined some philanthropic endeavor or a major career move. The poor man. Just then, the restaurant door chimed, and in swept Octavia Llewellyn. She was a vision in a form-fitting bright yellow dress, her hair a cascade of perfectly styled waves, her phone already in hand, probably mid-story for her Instagram. She looked around, confused, then her eyes landed on our table. Her jaw dropped, a truly priceless expression. "Dad? Sabine? Marjorie?" Her voice was a squeak of disbelief, like a deflating balloon. "Octavia, darling, you made it!" I beamed, gesturing to the empty seat beside me. "We were just talking about your secret achievement." The words hung in the air, thick with a sweetness that was anything but innocent. The look on Octavia's face was a masterpiece of dawning horror. She knew, or at least, she knew something was terribly wrong. Magnus, ever the traditionalist, rose to greet his daughter, a proud smile on his face. "Octavia, what is this all about? Marjorie here tells us you have some wonderful news to share." Sabine, meanwhile, narrowed her eyes at me, a lawyer's instinct for deception kicking in. But it was too late. The trap was sprung. "Please, Octavia, sit," I said, my voice as smooth as aged whiskey. "Your family is so eager to hear all about your contribution to the Penrose family. Specifically, your very personal, very intimate contribution to my marriage." The atmosphere in the booth shifted from polite anticipation to a palpable silence, so heavy you could cut it with a butter knife. Magnus's smile faltered, his eyes darting between me and Octavia. Sabine's face, usually a mask of professional composure, was slowly draining of color. Octavia, who had just sat down, looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. The microaggressions of suburban life, the polite smiles hiding daggers, were about to explode into a full-blown public spectacle, and I was holding the match. This was going to be a train wreck, and I had front-row seats. The silence that followed my pronouncement was so profound, you could hear the clinking of cutlery from tables across the room. Octavia, usually so poised for the camera, looked like a deer caught in headlights, her carefully constructed influencer facade crumbling faster than a cheap cookie. Magnus, her father, cleared his throat, a nervous habit I'd noticed during my research. Sabine, however, the corporate shark, was already in full damage control mode. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, fixed on me. "Marjorie, I believe there's been a misunderstanding," Sabine began, her voice low and controlled, a lawyer attempting to cross-examine a hostile witness. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately." "Oh, but Sabine, where's the fun in that?" I replied, my smile unwavering, radiating the kind of serene confidence that only comes from holding all the cards. "And besides, This achievement of Octavia's involves the entire family. Wouldn't you agree, Magnus? Especially when it comes to family values and, well, legacy. I directed my gaze at Magnus, knowing exactly which buttons to push. His face, already pale, tightened. Reputation was everything to him. Octavia, finally finding her voice, stammered, "Marjorie, what are you doing? This is insane!" "Insane?" I chuckled, a light, airy sound that belied the steel in my eyes. Is it insane to want to celebrate a young woman's dedication, her commitment, her passion, especially when that passion is directed so enthusiastically towards a married man? My husband, Lucian Penrose, to be exact. The words landed like a perfectly aimed dart. Magnus gasped, a small, choked sound. Sabine's eyes widened, a flicker of genuine shock replacing her professional composure. Octavia looked like she was about to spontaneously combust. This was the moment of indignation I'd been waiting for, the collective realization that their perfect Octavia was anything but. "Lucian, your husband," Magnus sputtered, his voice laced with disbelief and, more importantly, mortification. "Octavia, is this true?" Octavia, cornered, could only manage a pathetic whimper. "Dad, it's complicated." "Complicated?" I interjected, leaning forward slightly, my voice still calm, almost conversational. "Oh, honey, the only thing complicated here is explaining to the HOA why your secret achievement involves a married man and a video that could make a sailor blush. But don't worry, I've got a copy. For posterity, of course." That's when the real plot twist hit them. The casual mention of the video. Sabine's jaw actually dropped. Magnus looked like he'd been slapped. Octavia, who had been trying to shrink into her seat, suddenly went rigid. The color drained from her face, leaving her looking utterly ghastly. She knew I had the evidence. She knew her little game was over. "A video?" Sabine asked, her voice barely a whisper, the lawyer in her already calculating the potential PR nightmare. "Oh, yes," I confirmed, as if discussing the weather. "A rather enthusiastic production, very avant-garde. It really showcases Octavia's unique talents. I'm sure it would go viral, though perhaps not in the way she intended." I took a sip of my sparkling water, relishing the moment. The mental trigger was working. They were feeling the shame, the anger, the sheer mortification on Octavia's behalf. And yet, they couldn't look away. This wasn't just about exposing Octavia. It was about exposing the Llewellyn family's carefully constructed image. Magnus, the pillar of the community, the man who lectured on integrity at Rotary Club meetings, now had a daughter who was a homewrecker. Sabine, the high-flying corporate lawyer, now had a sister who was a scandal waiting to happen. The humor was in the sheer absurdity of their shock, their inability to reconcile the Octavia they thought they knew with the Octavia I was so casually revealing. "I'm not here to demand an apology or even an explanation," I continued, my voice softening, almost sympathetic. "I'm here because Octavia felt the need to send me a little thank you video. A digital postcard, if you will. And I thought, how rude of me not to reciprocate. So I decided to return the favor, personally, to the people who raised her. After all, family is everything, isn't it?" Magnus, recovering slightly, tried to regain some semblance of control. "Marjorie, this is a serious accusation. Do you have proof?" "Proof?" I raised an eyebrow, a flicker of genuine amusement in my eyes. "Oh, Magnus, sweet Magnus, I don't just have proof, I am proof. 18 years of marriage, a shared mortgage, and a very confused golden retriever named Cooper who misses his dad on those business trips. But if you're talking about the video, yes, and texts, and emails, and a very detailed report from a private investigator who specializes in discreet inquiries in the tri-state area. I've been preparing for this little family gathering for months, actually. This was the core of the twist. I wasn't just reacting. I had been meticulously planning. The surprise lunch wasn't a spontaneous act of rage, but the culmination of a calculated, intelligent strategy. They had underestimated me, the seemingly demure suburban wife. They thought I was a victim, not a strategist. "You hired a private investigator?" Sabine asked, a new note of respect, albeit grudging, entering her voice. She recognized the move. It was professional. It was smart. Well, when your husband starts quoting a new life coach who sounds suspiciously like a millennial influencer, you start asking questions, I said with a shrug. And when that life coach sends you a video of herself and your husband, you stop asking questions and start collecting evidence. It's the American way, isn't it? Due diligence. I then pulled out a small, elegant, leather-bound notebook from my purse. I've compiled a rather comprehensive timeline, actually. Dates, locations, estimated expenditures on designer handbags and weekend getaways to Nantucket, all meticulously documented. It's quite the page-turner. I even have a few screenshots of Octavia's private Instagram stories, where she's tagged Lucian in some rather compromising positions. You know, for her inner circle of followers. I paused, letting the implications sink in. The betrayal wasn't just to me, but to their family's reputation, broadcast to Octavia's online audience. The air was thick with unspoken accusations and dawning realization. Octavia was slumped in her seat, utterly defeated. Magnus looked like he was about to have a stroke. Sabine, however, was looking at me with a new, unsettling mixture of horror and grudging admiration. She understood the game I was playing, and she knew I was winning. This wasn't just a revelation. It was a full-blown public dismantling of their family's carefully curated image. And the best part? The main course hadn't even arrived yet. The anticipation for what I would do next was almost unbearable, even for me. The waiter, a young man with an admirably poker face, arrived with our main courses, oblivious to the emotional dumpster fire smoldering at our table. He placed a perfectly seared salmon in front of me, a steak for Magnus, and a quinoa salad for Sabine. Octavia's plate, a vibrant pasta primavera, sat untouched, a colorful monument to her ruined appetite. The irony wasn't lost on me. She'd prepared a feast for my husband, and now her own meal was inedible. So, as I was saying, I resumed, picking up my fork with an air of practiced nonchalance. This isn't just about Lucian's midlife crisis. It's about Octavia's career choices. You see, Magnus, Sabine, Octavia has been quite diligent in building her brand. And part of that brand, apparently, involves a certain disregard for marital vows and a rather aggressive approach to networking with married men. Magnus, still reeling, managed to stammer, But Lucian is a married man. He has responsibilities. Oh, he certainly does, I agreed, taking a delicate bite of salmon. And I assure you, he will be facing the full weight of those responsibilities. But my focus today, gentleman and lady, is on Octavia. Because while Lucian is a fool, Octavia is, shall we say, a strategic operator. I emphasized the words, letting them hang in the air, painting a picture of a calculating opportunist rather than a naive victim. Sabine, ever the pragmatist, leaned forward. Marjorie, what exactly do you want? What's your end game here? Her voice was tight, betraying her growing anxiety. She knew a legal battle was brewing, and her sister was on the wrong side of it. My end game, Sabine, is poetic justice, I stated, my eyes meeting hers directly, and a little public education. You see, when Octavia sent me that video, she wasn't just trying to hurt me. She was trying to replace me, to announce her victory, and I believe in responding in kind. So, I thought, what better way to show her the true cost of her victory than to share it with the people whose opinions she values most? I then pulled out my phone, not to play the video, that would be too crude, too un-Marjorie, but to display a carefully curated collage of screenshots. Not of Lucian, but of Octavia. Octavia at a luxury resort, tagged Weekend Getaway with Bae. Octavia posing with a ridiculously expensive handbag, captioned, Treat yourself, you deserve it. Octavia in front of Lucian's car, a custom Range Rover with a cryptic, New Wheels, New Me tag. Each image, innocuous on its own, became damning when viewed through the lens of my narrative. These are from Octavia's private stories, I explained, where she often hinted at her new, exciting life. A life, I might add, that Lucian was funding. The trips, the gifts, the lavish dinners, all on my dime, essentially. Or rather, on the Penrose family dime. Lucian's assets are, after all, marital assets. So in a way, Octavia was enjoying our money. A rather expensive, secret achievement, wouldn't you say? Magnus's face was a mask of pure fury, not directed at me, but at his daughter. The traditional man, whose entire life was built on financial probity and social standing, was now confronted with his daughter's blatant gold-digging and public indiscretion. "You spent his money? Our family's money?" he roared, his voice low and dangerous. Octavia finally broke. "It wasn't like that, Dad. He said he loved me. He said he was leaving her." Tears streamed down her face, ruining her meticulously applied makeup. But her tears held no sway with me, or with Sabine, who looked utterly disgusted. "Oh, honey, they always say that," I said dismissively, waving a hand. "It's boilerplate for the other woman handbook. But the truth is, Lucian was never going to leave. He just liked having his cake and eating it too. And Octavia, you were the cake. A very expensive, very public cake." Then came the final, devastating blow. "And speaking of public," I continued, my voice taking on a slightly more serious tone, "I've already filed for divorce, and because of the overwhelming evidence of Lucian's infidelity and his financial misconduct, diverting marital funds to support an affair, I'm seeking a significant portion of our joint assets, including, I might add, a substantial claim against any funds Lucian may have gifted to Octavia. As a corporate lawyer, Sabine, I'm sure you understand the legal implications of dissipation of marital assets, and how easily a judge in Connecticut might view a provocative video sent to the wife as evidence of emotional distress and intentional infliction of harm." Sabine's eyes snapped to mine, a flicker of genuine alarm. This wasn't just about family drama anymore. It was about legal and financial ruin. Her sister's actions could have serious repercussions, not just for Lucian, but potentially for Octavia herself. "You're going after her assets?" she asked, her voice tight. "Oh, not her assets, Sabine," I corrected sweetly, "but Lucian's assets that became hers. It's a rather intricate legal dance, but my lawyer, a brilliant woman named Riley Morgan, assures me we have a very strong case, especially with the evidence Octavia so thoughtfully provided. It's almost like she was trying to help me build my case, isn't it?" The room felt like it was spinning for the Llewellyns. Magnus, his face purple with rage and shame, slammed his fist on the table, making the silverware jump. "Octavia, you have disgraced this family. You have no idea what you've done." Octavia, now sobbing uncontrollably, looked utterly defeated. Her epic revenge video had backfired spectacularly, turning into the very weapon that would dismantle her own life and reputation. The poetic justice was almost too perfect. Lucian, the philandering husband, would face financial ruin. Octavia, the brazen mistress, would face public humiliation and potential financial entanglement. And I, Marjorie Penrose, the invisible wife, would emerge not only with my dignity intact, but with a significant chunk of Lucian's luxury real estate empire. The new power dynamic was clear. The powerful had fallen, and the underestimated had risen. And the salmon, I noted, was perfectly cooked. The aftermath of that lunch at the Gilded Spoon was, predictably, a glorious train wreck for the Llewellyns and a surprisingly smooth sailing for me. Octavia, utterly mortified, vanished from social media for a while, her influencer career effectively torpedoed by a single, well-placed lunch. Magnus, the traditional patriarch, disowned her, at least temporarily, because nothing wounds a man of his stature more than public scandal. Sabine, ever the pragmatist, actually reached out a few days later, not to apologize for Octavia, but to offer her firm's services for my divorce, completely free of charge. "Consider it a professional courtesy," she'd said, a hint of grudging respect in her voice, "and a way to mitigate further family embarrassment." I politely declined, already having Riley Morgan on retainer, but the gesture spoke volumes. Lucian, bless his clueless heart, was blindsided. He'd spent years building his empire, oblivious to the fact that I was the quiet architect of his domestic stability. When the divorce papers landed, complete with the detailed financial forensics and the damning evidence of his affair. He was, for the first time in our 18 years, speechless. The settlement was generous, to say the least. My lawyer, Riley, ensured that Lucian's business trips and gifts to Octavia were meticulously accounted for, resulting in a substantial redistribution of assets. I kept the Greenwich house, of course, because I'd designed every inch of it, and frankly, it was too good to give up. Lucian moved into a rather sad, generic condo in Stamford, ironically close to Octavia's old stomping grounds. Karma, it turns out, has a wicked sense of humor and a penchant for real estate. My life, post-Lucian, became a canvas of new possibilities. I rebranded my interior design business, focusing on empowering women to create spaces that truly reflected them, not just their husbands' tastes. I even started a small, anonymous blog called The Unseen Architect, where I shared my musings on life, design, and the occasional darkly humorous anecdote about marital folly. It became surprisingly popular. The biggest lesson? Never underestimate the quiet ones. The women who seem to be just gracefully navigating the suburbs, making sure the throw pillows match the drapes. We're often the ones paying attention, collecting data, and quietly formulating plans while everyone else is busy performing for their own audiences. Lucian thought I was just part of the scenery. Octavia thought I was a pushover. They both learned, the hard way, that the most dangerous woman in the room is often the one who smiles serenely while holding all the receipts. I still see Lucian occasionally, usually at the grocery store or a local coffee shop. He looks smaller, less confident. The man who once commanded boardrooms now seems to shrink under my gaze. He usually offers a mumbled apology, a pathetic attempt to salvage some shred of dignity. I just smile, a genuine, unburdened smile, and say, "Lucian, darling, you're looking well. Enjoying the single life?" The irony is always delicious. Octavia, I hear, tried to reinvent herself as a wellness coach on a lesser-known platform, but the scandal followed her like a bad perfume. Her family, particularly Sabine, has slowly started to mend fences with her, but the trust is fractured. Magnus, I imagine, still brings up family honor at every holiday dinner, a constant reminder of her fall from grace. As for me, I'm thriving. I travel more, take on projects that truly inspire me, and spend my evenings with friends who genuinely celebrate my successes, not just tolerate my existence. My golden retriever, Cooper, is much happier now that he gets all the attention and no longer has to witness Lucian's late-night returns. He's a good judge of character, that dog. Life is funny, isn't it? You spend years building a perfect little world, only for someone to come along with a wrecking ball, or in my case, a provocative video. But sometimes, that wrecking ball is exactly what you need to clear the way for something even better, something authentic, something yours. I used to think my biggest achievement was designing the perfect living room. Now I realize it was designing the perfect exit. And that, my friends, is a masterpiece.